either. Let me be very clear about that. So
we are now live. Less incriminating things, please. So, moving swiftly on. So, I suppose before we kind of look at the comments or the questions that are about to be coming in, I suppose the importance of this panel, with it being about mental health for authors, there are so many different people going through different stages of their career. If you're in the serial format, you could be dealing with hiatus. You could be dealing with 0.5 star reviews. In terms of actual writing process, it's a very introverted or very isolated sort of profession in which you're writing, cranking out hundreds of thousands of words, all just, by yourself. So there's a lot of things with mental health, and we have a lot of people in the genre which have backgrounds in the military as well, and they have their own things that they have gone through as well. So there's a lot of topics here for us to discuss. And we're thankfully joined by a number of medical professionals, and we have a number of authors as well that have gone through and have had their own things with this subject. So hopefully we'll be able to get a good insight. So I'd like to start us off maybe with introductions, starting from the top down. So Emily, would you like to start us off?
I'm Emily, also known as EC Godhand. I just messed with my mic. Hopefully everyone can still hear me.
Perfect.
But my background is I'm a nurse, been a nurse for 10 years. I worked in inpatient psych on the pediatric side, on the adult side, on the advocacy side, the outpatient clinics. I led the group therapies. I went into forensic nursing, so anything dealing with any sort of child abuse, elder abuse, domestic violence. I also studied to be a SANE, so a sexual assault nurse examiner. I would be like one of the people you would see if you came in and needed someone to support you and help you figure out how to deal with after a traumatic event. So my specialty is trauma, which is ironic because I also have PTSD, CPTSD, and a host of other diagnoses. So fortunately, I was able to help me with that. And my writing, I wrote the Heartfire Healer series. Some people say it's a little dark.
It's so good. I should grab
so
a
good,
copy.
apparently. And
it'll be your turn soon, James. Jesus Christ.
I
Sorry.
may have
Go on, Emily.
I may have been working through some stuff with the book, but it did help. So it's me.
Fantastic. Who's next? Sorry, I believe. Sorry, Aileron. Would you be able to go next, please?
Yeah. So I'm Aileron Kong. I write the Land series, but I'm also a medical physician. I'm internal medicine, which basically means I kind of handle the nuts and bolts general stuff that you come to the hospital for. And when we were coming up with this topic, I really want to be part of it, not just because I have history and helping people with mental illness, but like I was in therapy myself for 2 years, and I've always been very clear, like I never ever would have become an author if I had not gone to therapy. Like it just put me on such a better track, like clarified so many things, and honestly just made me less of a dick according to all my friends. So I just wanted to say, like, it definitely changed my life for the better, and I'm so thankful for it, and I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. CJ.
Hi, I'm CJ Timms. I'm a family doctor from Sydney, Australia, former country doctor. I haven't had any mental health struggles myself, but the rates of burnout are so high in medicine that I spent a year sort of looking at what things avoid burnout. Thank you, EC and Aileron, for your honesty. It's actually very hard for health professionals to talk about this stuff, so good on you. And I write as a way of de-stressing and trying to avoid burnout. My biggest series is the Aussie Manor Apocalypse, and I once spent 200,000 words writing about burnout in training. So,
yeah.
Wow. Angel.
Yes, I'm an author. I write the Great Centurion series. I'm a NetRPG author. So I write a historical NetRPG, like the Great Centurion, Betrayal of the Arcanine, and my current one, King Minos, Master of the Minoans, which is a city building NetRPG. I suffer from PTSD myself from natural disaster. I went for a really bad hurricane. I don't know if you guys heard of Hurricane Maria in 2017, and then we just went for Hurricane Fiona, so which kind of re-triggered it. I'm going to therapy here and there, just try to, calm myself down and all that. And this RPG community has really helped me a lot. I find writing to be therapeutic for me, to be honest. And this community is so awesome. So I'm honored to be on the panel today. So Thank you guys. You guys are awesome.
Angel is so positive and amazing. I love all these people, but man, Angels, these are rock star.
I have to, James. I got no choice, man.
I love it, man. So I'm James Hunter. I've written a lot of books. These are probably some of the series I'm best well known for. Where are they? Viridian Gate Online and Rogue Dungeon. Both are complete series that I finished this year, and the newest one I'm working on is this guy, Vigil's Justice, right here. That's book 1. I can't use my fingers. Book 2 comes out in November. I also run Shadow Alley Press, which publishes a fair amount of game lit and progression fantasy lit RPG inside this space. So I work with a lot of authors. One of the things that we do at Shadow Alley is we talk with our authors about burnout, and we help develop career coping strategies, because if you want to do this as a career path, it's hard. I constantly tell people that if you make it 5 years in this industry as an indie author, you are a veteran, because the burnout rates and the turnover, sort of the attrition rate, is incredibly high in this community. I have seen hugely prolific and successful authors, they vanish like that overnight because this takes a toll on you. And so I've been doing this for almost 9 years now. I've seen a lot of people come and go. And I really believe that this is the best job on the planet. And so I like to talk with authors and help authors find ways to do this sustainably. In addition, I have suffered with depression and also severe PTSD. I was a combat machine gunner in the Marine Corps. And when I left, I was all kinds of jacked up. I've learned lots of good coping strategies through counseling to sort of help me deal. And I've incorporated some of that into my writing life. So I'm happy to be here to talk and hopefully help some authors out.
Thanks so much, James. And TJ.
Hey, everyone. So I'm TJ Lombardi. I've spent 15 years in the military, and so I got 5 more to go here and trying to survive, get to the tunnel, and you can see the light and it's not a train. So that's what I'm hoping for. But I'm also the author of the Dying Breed series. So we're still working on that. I was actually working on the manuscript for book 3 this morning. And book 1 actually was just sent to a literary agent last night. So we'll see what happens with that series. And we're super excited. But I'm blessed to be a part of this group, be a part of this panel with some incredible authors and professionals. I'm someone who has struggled with suicidal ideations, someone who had to go through a lot of ups and downs in my career. And finally, getting the therapy, getting the help, but finding your own internal resiliency on, having to just never consider yourself out of the fight and remembering that you're always here for a purpose in life. So, just take everything one step at a time. So let's get into this panel, and I'm excited to be here.
Amazing.
All right.
So I guess the first thing is that before we don't have any questions that have come in just yet. So I thought we might use this opportunity because I believe James, and TJ, and Angel, everyone here has spoken really from the heart. And what I'd like to do is maybe touch on the resilience and maybe about some of these practices that we can use or that could be beneficial for authors to sometimes get out of their own heads, because sometimes maybe therapy isn't, an option, or it isn't at that stage. What is it right now? I believe everyone should do therapy, but it's a case of what would be the key steps that someone might be able to undertake to, improve their headspace in their current actions. And maybe start with Emily.
Technical difficulties. I have cat aggro. Cats are great for mental health. Yes, Tao. One of the things that stands out to me when people talk about self-care and trying to prevent burnout is, I'll ask them what do you do for self-care? And be like, oh, well, I'll take a shower and I'll, maybe have a nap and go for a walk and, have a snack. And I'm like, those are basic human maintenance for physiological needs. Just good on doing those. Please do those. That's the bare minimum. What do you do for you, for your mental health? Do you have, hobbies that you do? Do you have things that you people you can connect with? All these different stuff. There's more that you can do, and you are. And a lot of times people will be like, oh, but I already have so much to do. I can't I can't do more. And it's like, you can't have an unsustainable pattern like that. You have my full permission to go take a shower and eat and snack and have those basic needs. And then also to have permission to go take care and have some time to yourself, and have some time where if you have to schedule it where it's like, I'm doing nothing Friday night from 7 to 10. And people are asked, oh, what are you doing? I'm doing nothing. Oh, do you want to know? I am doing nothing. I am doing me time. And just making sure like you have those good, strong boundaries can really help a lot.
Excellent. Aileron?
I think there's a lot of stigma against receiving help in various communities. And I don't know, one thing I just like to say is that it's totally fine if you ever need help. It just sort of means that the world is bigger than you, which is a very reasonable thing to sort of wrap your head around. And then outside of stigma, I think the things that keep people away from it is they're like, well, it's going to cost too much. I don't really have time. There's other things. And a lot of times when you're employed with a corporation, if you talk to HR, there's actually like a lot of different resources you can do that will they'll pay you back for just finding your own therapist. Like there's a lot of resources out there that people will just have no idea about because it's sort of seen as a thing that is still not discussed even in 2022 about if you have a hard time or anything like that. So that's really sort of what I think that is important for people to know. Like, it's okay to need help. It's okay to ask for help before things turn into an absolute dumpster fire. It's actually like way better before it's an absolute dumpster fire. And there are a lot more avenues for help than you may think. And, you know, there's people whose entire jobs are just to sort of shorten that gap for you until it's very, very easy. So it's okay. And it's not impossible, I guess is what I'm saying.
Perfect. And CJ?
Yeah, sure. So just to caveat, anything I say here is non-specific advice, and I'd encourage anyone to have a chat with their own doctor or psychologist. In terms of general advice, one of the analogies that clicked for me recently was if you think about your own well-being and self-care, like a cultivation fantasy novel. So your foundations, so you've got to set your foundations right, and that includes making sure you get appropriate sleep, eat well, move regularly, make sure that you're not over-caffeinating, drink to a moderate amount, as well as not taking up smoking. Those are all good foundations, and they're good for your wellness. And there are people who suffer from depression for a number of reasons, and sometimes they do need medication or further help. But look after the basics well as a good foundation. And then from there, you want to try and look after your wellness every day. And that involves things like meditation. And, the analogy from a progression fantasy standpoint of view would be cultivation. So every day you want to meditate, be mindful, be aware of what's going on. And there are people who are just having a bad time with things. And sometimes that's not enough. And that's when a dedicated family doctor or clinical psychologist is really good to have a chat with, or a mental health nurse. Those are just some basic tips. And beyond that, I'd recommend any of the websites that are dedicated to mental health down here in Australia, to Beyond Blue, the Black Dog Institute. And that's a good starting point.
Fantastic.
So why are cultivators so bloodthirsty then? I mean, that doesn't make any
it doesn't make sense, does it? I think I'd use the
not
analogy,
other care.
more the farming cultivators. So things like what was it? Be afraid of chicken, for example.
Aware of chicken.
Yeah.
Angel, what about yourself?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm going to go back to what anyone was saying, that you should get therapy, you should get help before it turns into a dumpster fire. You're talking about, you're looking at a guy who his life was a dumpster fire earlier this year. I got into a really bad depression, and it got so bad that I thought of suicide and all that. You know, it gotten so bad. So I mean, I think another good piece of advice that I'm surprised nobody says is just try not to watch the news. Just avoid the media. I mean, the media is it's so poisonous, man. It's especially down here in Puerto Rico. I don't know about in the States, but here in Puerto Rico, it's poisonous as heck. I mean, sometimes I tell my mom, put that in the other room. I don't want to hear it because it's just so poison. Oh God, I just don't want to hear it. You know, but honestly, I like to go outside, exercise, just exercise my mind and all that. I mean, but basically what CJ was saying as well. But really for me, the biggest thing that's helped me is just staying away from the media. And I mean, there's going to be some things that I have to listen to that's going to tick me off about about where I am. But none of it is just propaganda. Just trying to get you to react, and you just got to be strong not to react to certain things. I mean, because unfortunately, I know some good friends who unfortunately took the media too personal, and they thought that there was no future for them, and it kind of made me feel like I'm going to be frank. It kind of made me feel like crap, But so really, it's just you just got to really look out for yourself. Just avoid the media. I mean, if you got any friends who posting out political stuff and it's really affecting you, you should just try to. Now, I don't want to say unfriend them, but just try to snooze them. Don't pay attention too much to the political stuff out there. It's going to tear you apart. I mean, it tore me apart to a degree almost. So yeah, I mean that's all I can say. That's all I can say without repeating what others have said.
So James, yourself.
So I'm going to frame my narrative a little bit around authors specifically. I want to talk a little bit about author time. So author time is basically condensed time. If you're an indie author, most of us on this panel are fairly prolific. I think I've written 35 books since I started writing in 2015. We are trying as a community of authors to condense sometimes a 20 or 30 year career into 2 or 3 or 4 years. I mean, that's what our productivity is. We're trying to put 30 years worth of books into 3 or 4 years. That takes a mental toll. Career authors, traditionally published career authors that have been doing this for 30 years also get burnt out. So it's not surprising that when authors hit that sort of 4 or 5 year break point, they end up kind of burning out and getting out of the business because they've tried to condense a 30-year career into 5 years. So my advice is this business will take as much as you will give, and then it will take more. So you have to create very, very firm sort of break points in your own life, especially if you're working from home, where you say, this is work time and this is not work time. I'm going to spend this much time on social media and not anymore. I'm going to spend this much time on writing and not anymore. Back in 2018, I was hyper prolific. I was also the most miserable I'd ever been because I was not working out regularly. I was binging where I would stay up for 2 or 3 days straight, and I was writing through the night to try to be more productive. I was getting more words out than I had ever gotten out in my entire life, and I had never been closer to burning out because I was miserable. I was grumpy. I took it out on my family. I was not a fun person to be around. And going into 2019, my wife sat me down and said, hey, this needs to change. What you're doing is not sustainable long-term. And she was right. And so when I made that sort of stringent guidelines for my life of setting normal work hours, maintaining a normal sleep schedule, making sure I exercise on a regular basis, I started working less, and yet my productivity was more because the hours that I was spending, I was happier, I was enjoying what I was doing, and my quality of life was better overall. So just like figure out how to structure your life so that this business will not eat you up on the inside, because it will if you let it.
I mean, that's a good point, James. I mean, it's really a good point, James, because I've gotten more busier now, and I'm doing more in the Patreon stuff as well, and I get more people signing up for it. So yeah, I definitely have to divide my time equally and well. So absolutely, you brought up a really good point, James. Really,
thank you.
Yeah, man, great point, man.
Yeah,
perfect. So TJ, what about yourself?
So I see we have one question here, so I'll limit probably some of my answer because I think it could easily tie into that. But what I'll start with is, well, one, I encourage everyone to get help. Like, do not be afraid to get help. Please get help. I still meet with someone probably once a month, and it's just kind of like that check-in. Like, hey, here's what's going on. And they give me different perspectives of how to see things. But kind of like James, in 2018, I think it was 2018, I was recognized as the NCO of the year for the entire state of Oregon with the Oregon Air National Guard. I was at one of the highest points of my career with the amount of projects and the amount of things I was doing. I was like, hell yeah, this is fucking awesome. But yet I was sat at home and it was a cold fall day. The breeze was coming in as I sat in my chair. And that's when I was starting to go down the road of how am I going to do this with, to myself. And for me, the reason I say that is I had to come to a point of saying, you know what? I'm doing all these things for my career, but I'm not doing anything for myself. Mm-hmm. What is TJ needing right now to take care of himself? What are the important things that TJ wants to work towards? And once I started to change the parameters to say, TJ, take care of yourself, that's when I started to have the different perspectives of things. And I started to remind myself of, even though I was absolutely at the height of my career, I couldn't find the purpose in life, right? I couldn't find what my purpose was. I was pleasing this corporation. I was pleasing this job, but what was my purpose? And I was still seeking that. And honestly, at that point in my life, it was probably Aileron's book, The Land, that really brought a lot of that purpose back, because at the same time I was doing that with my career, I was in search and rescue for the county. So every day I'm out walking and ruck marching. I'm listening to The Land, as I got like 60 or 90 pounds on my back. And so there was a lot of things in The Land that was constantly like driving home these factors. And that's what got me to this point of like, you know what, dude, you had a story 13 years ago. Why are you not doing this right now? So for me, it was having to take a step back and self-reflect and just say, who are you? What do you want in life? What are you doing to help yourself in life right now?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And we do have a few questions come in, but there's one in particular I'd like to bring up from Jesse Garney. How do you deal with trying to talk to people about your problems and they just don't understand? Would anyone like to jump in on this one first, rather than going around robin?
I don't mind. I would say that the same kind of empathy that you want from other people, that you want them to understand you, we need to have that same empathy with the people that we're trying to relate to. It's entirely possible that there's a wonderful person that that is just not in a place where they can understand what you're trying to communicate. They're not going to be, it's okay if these other people aren't exactly what you need. In the same way we have to let go of the expectations on ourselves, we have to let go of the expectations on the people in our lives and just be like, Dan, it'd be really great if you could do this, but you didn't, and this is the reality. I think that a lot of the stress and the strain that the world puts on us is obviously real, but it's also real, the stress and the strain that we're putting on ourselves and that we're putting on the people that we love. So that's what I'd say about that.
Perfect. Anyone, anything to add on that? Oh, sorry, Emily.
Another thing, jumping off what Aileron said, was how if there's something that you want from that person in particular that you can recognize, you want them to validate or acknowledge what you're going through, you may not necessarily get it from them, and there may not be a way you can explain it to them to get that. So what I've found that works for me is to kind of acknowledge and go, okay, well, they don't have to. They may not get it. They may not be in a good headspace. Right. Some things you just can't understand unless you've been through it. So what I tell myself then is, well, can I give that to myself then? If I feel like I need to be heard or validated or acknowledged, can I do that to myself and be like, can at least I recognize it? And then whether or not they recognize it is within their control. And I'm not trying to exert that control. I can only control what I do, not what they do. And I can give that up. Be like, well, at least I can take care of myself and acknowledge myself. And whether or not they do is up to them.
Right. So I think if I can, with this one, not to jump in, change the narrative of that question. And I want to share with you guys something that was taught to me a long time ago. And that is, appreciation is the shortest lived human emotion. Okay.
Yeah.
So I come in and I say, James, dude, I absolutely love this. This was amazing. Thank you so much. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. Right. And then 10 seconds later, we break. His wife comes in. What the hell? Why is the laundry not done? What is this? Yep. Like the dishes are piled up. All of that appreciation is now gone. Right. And so for us, how do we deal with these negative comments? What can we do to combat that?
We'll never know. Yeah. We'll never know.
Yeah, I think it's the pros. Yeah,
I really hope it doesn't just join back and we're all laughing.
You can continue to remind the people in your... Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good now. We have you back, I think.
Right when you were telling us, it was an amazing moment. It was great.
Internet connect hugely. So yeah, negative comments. At those comments, I can remind you, I appreciate you, man. You know, I appreciate what you did. I appreciate the fact that you helped me, and you come from genuineness. You have no idea how much that's going to mean to one. Whether it's a waiter, whether it's a gas station, the person who helps you with your bags at the airport, just being genuine with people and telling all those little things that you love and admire can go such a huge long way. So I would encourage that. That's one way you can combat that negative behavior.
Amazing. One of the questions I just wanted to ask here, it came in from Jen, but I'd like to add a caveat to it, I suppose. So how do you deal with negative comments, reviews, or criticism of your books? But one of the things as well, we do have some prolific authors here, and James very nicely said that, you know, a lot of prolific authors, and I'm taking that personally. I'm like, thank you, James. But when you get to a certain standpoint, I suppose reader expectations becomes absolutely huge. Because with Aileron, for example, with The Land, with its earth-shattering like success story, the reader expectations probably get you a lot more than the comments, reviews, or criticism. It's just there's an onslaught of it. So I suppose through the lens of, rather than just how do you deal with the negativity, how do you also deal with that pressure that comes with it of expectation?
I feel like James already touched on it a bunch. We're pushing, we're compressing, we're pushing. And it's this like, it's not like the government that says you have to write books this fast. It's not like whatever you believe in. It's not like, you know, I mean, your significant other might leave you. I don't know. There's a lot of horrible people out there. But like, you know, it's us that's grinding down on ourselves. And like you brought up The Land, like, yeah, like it took off. I had no idea. I mean, when I wrote the first book, I never literally thought another human being was going to read it. I knew nothing about publishing or writing. And I did start to feel trapped by the expectations of others, by the nitpickiness, by the whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I realized that when I started writing, it didn't feel the same. It started to feel just like work. It started to feel pressuring. I started to worry more as I was writing, is somebody gonna like this? And I was like, this sucks. And I was like, I don't really know what else to do but try to reset, and I don't know if this is going to work. And I was like, and maybe they won't be there, maybe it's not going to be great, but I knew that what I was doing wasn't working for me. So I just put the keys down for a little bit, started going on walks, started connecting with people that I cared about more, started losing weight again. Like James said, you got to take care of the physicality. It's all part of it as well. And like I wrote a little bit here and there, like since that time, that like I kind of slowed down, but it's only in the last like 3 months where I really was like, oh, I really want to sort of dive back into the books. And it feels like it used to. It feels like pure creation and joy and ridiculousness and awesomeness. And I love what I'm writing again. And so like, yeah, there's this expectations feeling like more. And people are like consumer. And I get it, because back in the day, before I ever wrote, I was like, can these people get off their ass and just write a little bit faster? Like, what the hell? I am tired of like going through Amazon, like you lazy bitches. Like, I just hate it so much.
Where's the audio? Next book when? It's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the most common questions.
But I saw this Indian comedian who was talking about his career, and apparently he did really well as a comedian, but then he did a Bollywood movie that was so bad, the reviews were worst thing to happen to India since England. And he was like, it really, really bothered him. But he said the way that he got out of that is that he started to understand a very simple truth, that his art only belonged to him. He was beholden to it. It was beholden to him. But his fame only belongs to the world. And so being able to separate those two and just realize that like people are going to like some stuff, people aren't going to like other things, just do your best. It's not easy to live in that, but by reminding myself of that periodically, it relieves a lot of my personal pressure. So
I have a couple of points on this one, because I've dealt with this a lot, especially early on in my career. Most authors, the advice is don't read your 1-star reviews. We're authors. Most of us are not going to take that advice. We're going to go read them. Doesn't matter if we get 500 5-star reviews. The 10 1-star reviews are the ones that will be like, well, those guys are the ones that know the truth. It stings. It hurts. So what I have learned after doing this for a long time and walking with a lot of other authors doing this, is that you are not your art. When you start writing, a lot of people have this idea that like, I am my book because I poured myself into it. And so when someone makes a criticism or a critique of the book, it can be very easy to feel like they're making that criticism or critique of you. And after enough time, I realized that no, I am not my book. I am not my characters. I am not my art. And so if someone doesn't like the thing that I made, it doesn't mean that they don't like me. And that helped me, that mentality shift of I can dissociate from this thing that I do, helped me deal with a lot of that. The other thing that I realized and have continued to realize is that a lot of authors, when they start writing, they want to write a book for everybody. I don't. I want to write a book for my tribe. There is a specific group of readers who are going to love the thing that I do. There are a lot of readers that are not going to love the thing that I do. Those are not the people that I am writing for. I remind myself sometimes I'll go and I'll look at my favorite books from my favorite authors, and I'll go and I'll read their 1-star reviews as a reminder that there are brilliant things out there that I love in the world that other people absolutely hate. Those people are not a part of that tribe, and that's okay. Not everyone has to like everything or every book. And if you can remember that not everything is for everyone, and that you are not your art, it'll take a lot of the sting out of those blows.
Right.
Oh. Emily. Oh, sorry. We'll start with Emily, then over to you, Angel.
Okay.
Sorry, Angel.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say props to James, because that's one of the things that he taught me when I started writing for Shadow Alley, is I would get like so hung up. I'm like, no, this is my first book. This is my baby. I put my heart and my soul into this. I put like my own experiences into this. And if they don't like that, then they don't like me. And James was like, okay, hold on. Like, that's not how that works. And I remember either from you or someone else I had gone to being like, no, they hate it. Oh, I'm dead here. No one will ever read my stuff again. It was like, well, you're not everyone's cup of tea. But like, to elaborate on that, some people just don't even like tea. They hate tea. No amount of tea that you could ever give them, they would ever like. And that's okay. You're not going to like everything. Everyone, yes, people just want water. They want hot water, cold water. The temperature's wrong. There's not enough ice cubes. There's always going to be something that they don't necessarily like. And that doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. So, if you're looking at it from a marketing perspective of, I have 5 cats to feed, I need to figure out how to, manage and deal with that from a business perspective. But like, none of that necessarily reflects on you. Like, and I read the reviews. I want to be a hypocrite. I'm going to tell you, don't read the reviews. I know you are. I know I did. One guy read me for filth and went after my name, saying that I was full of hubris and arrogance to call myself by my last name, and I needed to be a better writer if I was going to do that. And I was like, "Oh, ouch."
Yeah.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man. And just kind of like being able to let that go and accept that maybe you don't write everything for everybody, but you write for your people, and they love it and they want more. Give your people what they like.
Angel.
So Emily, what she was kind of saying what I was saying. I was going to say that it's for you, Mike. I write historical fiction, so I know not everybody's going to make my historical knit RPG, but I know plenty of people do. I know. I think Emily, you have one of my historical fiction knit RPG novels, so I know you're into history. But but expanding upon that point, I read my reviews. I do read my reviews as well. But to be fair, some of the bad reviews are not always there to bring you down, because I read a pretty bad review of one of my earlier books, and it kind of molded me into the author I am now. I kind of used it to improve my craft. I didn't let it get me down. I just said, okay, maybe maybe he has a valid point. Maybe I could do certain things better, and I should improve my craft, read more, and I just used it to improve myself. So, not all bad reviews are true. Some of them are coming from a good place. That's another thing you have to realize. Some people are coming from a good place, and you just have to decipher it. And,
I just remind myself, like, don't give up. Just get better every time.
There you go. Exactly.
CJ.
I made a conscious decision after about book 6 that I was just not going to read my reviews. Mostly because I'm in the fortunate position, this is my side hustle rather than my main job. And I'm meant to be doing it to be able to serve my patients and my community better. So it's meant to be my expressive writing to keep me from burning out. So I make a conscious effort to not read the reviews, which is really hard. And
good on you.
That's because I have to write. I have to get up at 5 a.m. and write for an hour or do it on the weekend. And any time I'm spending writing is time that I'm not spending with family or at work or with my friends. And so there's got to be a value intrinsic to that writing process. And that value to me is that I enjoy it, and it is something that prevents me from burning out so I can keep serving my community. And that was something that I don't know if you guys have ever been to a Tony Robbins conference, but he harps on about that at length. He just talks about service, and gratitude. So I'm in a different position, I guess, to a lot of people on this panel, that I have the luxury of being able to do that, but I know not everyone can.
So
there's also a amazing YouTube video with Patrick Stewart reading reviews of Wonders of the World that are 1 star.
Oh yeah,
and it's like the Eiffel Tower with all the holes. You suck. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of idiots out there. We've been very kumbaya, but a lot of people just suck. So like, whatever.
Amazing. So there's 2 questions here that I think can be somewhat combined. Josh McGriff asked, "What is your go-to break activity or snack?" But also, Jesse Garney wrote, "What do you think about people using your books as an escape?" So I know for TJ, who actually just said about using the land, which was for his. So I suppose when thinking about your own kind of break activities or the things that that kind of help you in your healing and your journey, what would be the ones that stand out for each of you? For this one, we'll go round robin and we'll actually go in reverse. Let's start with TJ.
All right. Well, if you guys saw the last panel I was on, I talk about my routine, having that positive routine of positive habits that I want to do. So again, there it is. I got my 4 positive habits for the day. But when it comes to while I'm writing, I found running is one of the best things for me. When I wrote book 2, I had a month dedicated to it of where I just wrote every day. But I knew I had to go run. And so I put the keyboard away. I closed the door to the office and I went running. And what I found when I ran was that it allowed everything else to decompress, especially with the book. And so that's where what was funny is, I'm listening to my heavy metal or whatever else that was getting me going. But then it was, dude, like this character Josapa is going to be amazing in this. And, so it allowed me to really get this energy out. So running is my biggest thing for when I write, but then also yoga and meditation as well. And so body image is something I think many of us all struggle with. For me, it's something being here in Arizona in the middle of July, I go out back, take my shirt off and just try to soak up the sun and do stretches and do meditation in direct sunlight. And it was part of that suffering that also really helped out the whole process. But that was what I did. So running, yoga, meditation while writing, and then also my weightlifting and my reading of either a book or a podcast just to keep myself grounded. Dr. Cloud's Necessary Endings and Atomic Habits are 2 I would always recommend to people who want to get into the process of some new self-development, refresh one's mindset on life. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, James.
So I want to answer the first part of the question, using your books as an escape. 2020, 2021, 2022, pretty much all of the pandemic years, I think have been challenging for a lot of authors to write because like Angel was kind of talking about this with the news media, there's been a very hopeless narrative that's set over the world. And I can tell you from running a publishing company where we have a lot of authors where they just say, man, it feels like, what's the point of doing this? The whole world is falling apart all around me, and here I am telling stupid books or, writing these stupid stories. Like, why am I even doing this? I could spend my time doing something else that's better. But then I think about what I did to decompress during the pandemic and what I still do to recharge, which is consume media. I love sitting down with a good book. I love physically going to a movie theater and soaking in the experience of someone else telling a good story with good characters. I think constantly about how miserable the sort of pandemic years were and how much more miserable they would have been if I didn't have art to enjoy. And I remember that as I recharge myself, and I tell myself that's what I'm bringing into the world for somebody else. My books are the same thing that recharges me and makes me want to get up in the morning and want to write and that I turn on before I go to bed so that I feel reinvigorated. My books do that for somebody else. And so whenever I'm feeling down, I'm like, man, what's the point of doing this? Why am I, the world is hopeless. I think, no, the world is made better by art. And I personally know that, and I personally experience that. And so if I can help bring cool art into the world that's going to help somebody else escape from their misery or their tedium or whatever hard thing they're going through and give them a little hope for a little while, that is an invaluable gift. And so even though maybe I'm not serving as a doctor on the front lines, I'm still doing something that is invaluable to so many people. And if I can kind of dwell with that and sit on that, it helps me sort of in my creative process.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, James. Angel.
So building on what James was saying about books as an escape, I got to tell you something. In schools, art is becoming a dying thing in schools. I mean, I remember I was going to school. I graduated high school from 2008, and art was a pretty dead thing. And I think it's tragic that art is becoming a dying thing. I mean, people don't realize art is very important, because without entertainment and art, what would we be doing? Well, watching the news all day, going nuts, and all that, like I was saying before. Yeah, so. I would hate to live that kind of life. So art is definitely an escape.
Sorry. So I guess the CJ.
I guess answering the escape part of the question first. It depends on what you mean by escape. I think it is invaluable. So I'm one of those gamers who doesn't have time to game anymore, and that's really why I love Lit RPG. The ability to sit down and read a book is restorative to me. It recharges me. And there are a number of people I see who it is restorative for, introverts or otherwise. I think if you're using it as an escape to recharge and restore, that's fantastic. It should probably not be used to avoid problems, but it is something that people come to me and they say, this is what recharges me. This is great for me. And it does help people find their tribe. So what James was saying about, it is really important to have a tribe. We're tribal creatures, and some people have no idea this community is out there, and they find these books, and all of a sudden they click. In terms of what I do for a break, pretty much what TJ was saying, I run, I do yoga, I meditate, and you often come up with your best ideas when you take a break and go for a run. Like, it's crazy. Just, things click.
And I hate running, but I still do it.
Aileron. You're muted. You're muted. Still muted.
One, I unmute myself. That's
Aileron will be using interpretive dance for this, so please.
Let's see what I was going to say. I was saying, one, thank you so much for what you said, CJ. That I feel so honored that I could be part of your journey, man. That's awesome. Thank you. And sort of to piggyback again what my very eloquent friend James says, who has just been like, the way he's portraying himself is the way he's always been. From day one, he's been there to help other authors. He's always been super cool. So appreciate you being so awesome, dude. But like, yeah, the fact, like, life is hard, and yeah, you can't just hide from everything, and you need help, and therapy is something I absolutely recommend. But sometimes you just need a beer. Sometimes you just need an escape. Sometimes you just need to, life is hard, and anything that can sort of get you through that to the next day is something that, as long as it's not overly destructive or causing more harm than good, like, give yourself a break and do that. That's awesome. I never anticipated the impact that I was going to have on other people when I wrote these books. Like, I've had people write to me about how they were having suicidal ideation, and then my books helped them out of that. I've had people talk about how they were estranged from their families, or were planning to get a divorce, and they had something to talk about. Like, that's not something that I was like, okay, I'm putting this book out here and now this is an impact. But when you put something positive out into the world, you never know the ripples that you're going to sort of cause. And honestly, that's the only thing that sort of gives me hope for our species. Like, it's us, regular people doing things to make other people's lives a little bit easier so we can understand each other better. So I don't know. It's such an honor to be part of that, and to know that, like, wow, I actually, this day wasn't just about me. That's an awesome feeling. So, yeah.
Emily.
to harken back to what everyone's saying about using like art and media and stories as a way to kind of escape. There's a couple things to be said about that, where obviously the dose makes the poison. Of if you do something too much and you recognize that you're doing something too much, and then you ask yourself the question, what am I escaping from? Why is this world better and than the one that I'm in? And help you like have a springboard of, what is missing? What do I need to do? What steps can I take to make this one better? And sometimes, like especially when people are children and they have less control over their lives, we see a lot of like the maladaptive daydreaming, a lot of the escapism into stories. I think that's how a lot of us, got into stories, was we couldn't escape whatever thing. There's a pandemic. You only have so much control over that. Even something as small as like being in school and not having a social network. And so reading provides a way to still have that human need to connect with other things, or to have it illustrate to the reader, here's how this person handled that problem. And it provides a learning opportunity for them. So I know I've gotten some criticism on my books being too dark. But one of the promises I always make to my readers through my books is, and I will lead you out of it. The character will not stay in that dark place. There will be a light. She will show you the way out. She's literally, that's why I love the cover with her having the light in her hand. If she doesn't know the way out, we're doing this together. Let's figure it out together. We have this light. We'll figure it out. And so I always like my books to show someone. I throw a lot of like mental health techniques and therapies that I try to teach people into it that the person uses. And that works for my readers. And so there's always a way to like be able to have value from the books that you're reading. And like I've worked with several different authors, and I've, like Alaron said, people come up and be like, your book saved me, to them. And I love seeing those moments. And I'd always come over and be like, let me see if I can get you something else for that merch. That meant so much to him. It meant so much to you. What can we do to help keep you as a reader? Because if that saved you, please keep reading. We want to keep you here. You are valuable. And as far as like what I do for breaks, I go read someone else's stuff. And I'll go like lay on the couch with, I'll have my kitties, I'll have my blankies, I'll have my nice comforting drink, and I'll go watch like Heaven's Official Blessing or some other K-dramas or something where I can escape for a bit from everything. And it just helps my brain be able to process. And I know I'm kind of rambling on at this point. I didn't take my Ritalin today, but thinking of what James said as far as like with the pandemic, the funniest thing happened where I was writing about a healer who was a Chinese American in New York, who in Manhattan, who ended up in an overwhelmed hospital having to go into a world to deal with a plague that the people in power didn't necessarily recognize to the degree that the healer believed that they should. I had written about 75,000 words. And then March 2020 happened and I could not cope. I remember going to James and being like, I can't do this, James. I'm so sorry. I know I have deadlines. I know I promised you this. I have to go do this. And James, to his credit, is an absolute mensch, was like, then you have to go do that. And that's more important than this. And so I went to New York and I worked on the front lines at the start of everything. And then, when I came back, being able to write those 3 books kind of helped me process what I was going through and help bring myself out of all the things I saw that I won't go into because I don't want to upset any of the listeners. But credit for the readers being able to escape and seeing how they process, and credit to the authors for being able to process through their books and give that experience and what they learned from those back to the readers.
I think a lot of us have talked about a great deal of stuff that we can even perhaps share, like staying grounded, right? There's times where I'm worried about the future. That's anxiety, right? Oh my gosh, what if? Now I'm afraid and I'm upset about what happened in the past. That's depression. And of course, for many of us, where, oh my God, I'm just constantly going back and forth, right? What if this happens in the future and this already happened to me? And coming back to center. And a lot of times I tell myself, why am I giving power and authority to things over me that don't have control unless I give it to them? If I come back into center, and one thing that's really helped me is, the serenity prayer. And you can even take that away from the religious, spiritual aspect and just remind yourself, give me the serenity to accept the things that I can't change. Mm-hmm. Courage to change the things that I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference. And so when you're going through some of these arcs, ask yourself that and remind yourself, you can't hold this over me because I'm not going to give it to you anymore. This is mine, and vice versa.
So,
my wife says something, it's very succinct and it kind of sums that up, but she constantly says, when I'm stressing or worried about something, she says, you need to remove yourself, divorce yourself from the outcome is what she says, because it's kind of that acknowledgement that you can't control the outcome. You can publish a book and it can flop. You can't control that. Sometimes you're going to write something that you think is great and readers aren't going to agree. And you know what? There's nothing you can do about that. So you just do the best job that you can. You put your stuff out into the world and then you do it again, because you can only control you. And you really just have to divorce yourself from that outcome. And that allows you to kind of just stay grounded and centered in the moment, I think.
Fantastic. One of the other things that I think would be nice to kind of touch on as well is, and just from my own personal experience, when I went to Madrid early in the year, it was my first ever meetup. And James took the time out of his day to sit down with me and unfuck my plot for book 2. I had fucked it, and he unfucked it with DJ Bodden, and it was absolutely fantastic. Yeah. It was absolutely brilliant, and it helped me. And I think it really kind of resonated in how much of a community this is.
Right.
It is so easy to look at the Aileron Kongs of the world and be like, oh, well, they're way over there. But you know what I mean? It's that you're here talking about mental health. James is talking about, we're all here talking about these things. And the sense of belonging that you have with this community as a writer, as someone who is like the Authors Guild, the Lit RPG, all of us are in this together. And we're figuring it out, learning, teaching each other. And we are like a family in a way. So even if we go back to that question of how do you talk to someone that doesn't understand, you are surrounded by people that understand you here. Mm-hmm. And once you have that, you can start the building blocks on how to, go forward from there. So I thought it was really, really powerful, especially to hear all of your experiences and talk about these things. So we don't currently have any sort of questions here at the moment. But what I wanted to do is maybe turn it around to yourselves and see, is there anything pointed that you would like to maybe take the floor with, or maybe observations, maybe, or anything like that, or just freestyle it, open it up to the room. Anyone you'd like to talk about something?
No. Yeah, I would.
Okay, Angel.
I mean, listen, I think this is a wonderful panel, because I'm going to tell you something, guys. I got a girlfriend in Michigan. She suffered from cancer, and I say cancer is a bad thing, but I still say mental health is the first thing you can have is mental health issues. Mentally that's the one thing that can kill you the worst, because it's the one thing that's the hardest to control. I wouldn't wish, I have PTSD. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. I'm just being honest. I wouldn't want to wish that pain upon anyone. So so if I could connect with anyone that has PTSD or has depression on that, it makes me feel better, because, I know we're in this together, because I know mental health is it's not like cancer or any other sickness that you can find a cure. There's not really a actual cure for mental health. So honestly, sometimes in my heart, I believe I'm going to be stuck with this PTSD forever. This is never going to go away. Especially I've been for 2 hurricanes, 2, traumatic events that really changed everything, the way I think, the way I thought about everything. I don't think I'm ever going to be killed. But the fact that we have this community, like you said, Brian, we're in this together, it really makes me feel more positive about things. I've been doing my best to feel more positive this year, try to get out of that rut that was in. And so that's pretty much it for me.
Thank you, Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
So I have some, and I'm really sorry. I know you guys were talking about going long, so I have to drop at 5 because I have kids and our nanny leaves. But I wanted to say, so I started a publishing company, and I constantly joke, although it's not really a joke, that I do it mostly because I want to have friends who are also writers, and that way they have to be my friends, right? Writing is an inherently lonely business,
Right.
and so building community is really important. Humans do not thrive in isolation. Even introverts don't thrive in isolation. And so much of our lives is, as writers, is us sitting here banging away on our keyboards in isolation for 3 or 4 months and then pushing our thing out into the world and hoping people like it. So if I was going to offer one piece of advice, it's find a way to connect with other writers, find a way to connect to this community, because this community is amazing. Go to some of the events, whether they're virtual, they're online, or in person. Find a way to connect with people, because I have not found one author, even big successful authors like Aileron, like Dakota, like Michael Che, like all of the authors that are here. None of them are going to snub you. All of us are in this together and realize that we're doing this thing as fans. We're doing this thing as people who are all passionate about the genre that we write in, and all of us want to help each other. So you will go further, and you will enjoy it more if you just find the time to connect with other people that are your kind of crazy.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, James. And I know that James has to go in a couple of minutes, so do you want to actually promo your books before you go?
Shadow Alley Press, come and find me. Thank you guys so much, and I'm just going to stick around for the last couple minutes here.
Fantastic. Who'd like to jump in next?
I'll piggyback on what James and Angel and everyone else has said. I think it's important to remember that you're not alone, and by that I mean as well, like, if you've got some messed up stuff in your head, other people have got some messed up stuff in their head. If you're feeling lonely, like, we all feel lonely. If you're feeling unsure of yourself, I guarantee you the loudest, brashest person in your office that acts like they've got it all together is the one with the most drama that, like, they don't even want to admit to. So, I mean, like, that is one. Like, I know for a fact that, like, when you're feeling off, like, mentally, emotionally, it just feels like you're sort of just this island floating out in the middle of the sea. And, like, you're not the only one. So it can bring a lot of comfort there. And I guess the other thing is that, like, it can seem very difficult to take the first step if you're having or suffering from some sort of, your own sort of drama or your own sort of, like, difficulty, your own sort of mental illness. It can seem almost impossible to take the first step. And you can look at other people that, like, you can look at the amazing advice that you've been hearing here, and you're like, but how am I supposed to do that? Everyone has to take the first step. Like, you don't need to measure yourself against where someone else is on their journey. It only looks really cool from the outside. Like, there's a Seinfeld where George pretends that he's a tourist because his life looks really great if you could press it into 3 days. But, like, everyone is, like, working on their stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's it. You're not alone, and it's okay that it takes you the time that it takes you.
And I just want to also state that even though TJ, who looks like an absolute athlete, goes for runs, you can go for walks.
I walk more than I run. Yeah. I walk more than I run. I swear.
Whatever, leg day.
Absolutely lies. Yeah, we can all see the gun show. Thanks very much, TJ. But yeah, it's like only like every little bit helps, and even if it's just going up the stairs, going out around the block, or things like that, just the fresh air will be absolutely incredible for you. So, yes, Emily.
Just to jump on what everyone else was saying, not to promote my books, but as an example, in book 3, I liked what the PvP champion ends up giving as advice to my character, where she's like, this is terrible. Like, how am I supposed to figure this out? Like, this is too hard. And he's like, your struggles are not unique to you. You are not the only person to have ever gone through this. Other people have figured it out. Go ask them. Go look at what they've done. There are options and tools available for you to take advantage of to, get good, scrub. And he's a little less nice about it, but that sentiment of, reminding people that you're not alone, like Aileron said, you know, this is not necessarily unique. You're not the only person to have ever struggled with this. It's not necessarily said to invalidate the person's struggle, but to validate it of, this is a thing that people experience. Can be common. This can be addressed. It can be, you know, fixed and coped with, and we can help you get better. So yeah, like reaching out to other people in the community and being like, how did you navigate this? Having panels like this, having people, you know, how did you navigate this? What are some other things we can use for us? So
amazing. So I suppose what we could do now is that we could probably go around the room and be like, what you're currently working on, anything you'd like to promote about, you know, your upcoming stuff, or yeah, that'd be great. So we'll start with CJ, if that's all right.
TJ or CJ?
CJ. Why would I start in the middle at the bottom? Like, that makes no sense to me. Jesus Christ, TJ. Like, sorry, CJT, not TJL. CJ, over to you.
So my current work is it's Santa Claus fighting monsters, so I feel a bit silly bringing it up on this panel, but there is a component to it of a man who's working through some grief. He gets reincarnated as Santa in a fantasy realm. It's Isekai, it's Cultivation, it's Lit RPG. So it's Santa Claus fighting monsters. It will come out in December sometime, and that's my current project.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that. TJ.
All right, guys. Well, I just put the link in the comments there for you guys. So the Dying Breed series Facebook page is where you can go and follow. And I would love to start doing some videos here, you know, every other week or so, give you guys the updates. But yeah, so the Dying Breed series, already working on book 3. Hopefully have some stuff for you guys here in the future to read up on. Final comment, you're never out of the fight. Don't give up, just get better. Even if you do 1% better every day, by the end of the year, you're over 300%, right? So just do 1%. You guys will be awesome. So
fantastic. CJ, you've been asked to post in a link. Angel.
Yes. So right now, as you can see on my shirt, it's my current series, King Minos, my city building series set in ancient Greece. So, you know, I'm working on book 4 right now. Book 3 will be coming out on November the 10th. And I also have a discounted series, the Great Satori, which is my Roman Lit RPG series. I'm going to put the link in the comments. So you can download all 3 books for 99 cents each until Friday. So that's the best way to get a taste of what I write. Antius Maximus is my pen name, by the way. That's the pen name I use for the genre. So in case you're wondering, are you see Antius Maximus instead of my name? That's why. All right.
Fantastic. Aileron.
So I'm working on book 9 of the Land series, and I've written a book, and I'm working on the second one for a new series. It's post-apocalyptic that I haven't put out yet, because I've just been enjoying the vibe, honestly. And I also turned my first book into a graphic novel that I put up for free on my website that I have, you know, if you want to check that out, but litrpg.com. But I also just have to say, like, this was such an awesome panel, and I don't know, you were awesome narrating it, Brian. Appreciate it. And everyone gave such, like, really brave and honest input. Like, I think that's awesome. I think a lot of people are going to benefit, again, just because they felt like maybe they're alone. Now they know they aren't. So appreciate y'all. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Emily.
So I kind of took a hiatus after finished Heartfire, trying to like figure out, okay, what's next. And then I ended up being one of the major nursing people for pandemic in Kentucky. So that kind of took me away. And then, you know, doing a bunch of other jobs and things. But I've been working on 3 different books that I hope to you know, really start like digging into and writing. One would be like a cultivation novel that deals with a girl with ghost eyes, and so she ends up doing more like spirit ghost cultivation, along with her. You know, they had like the grumpy sunshine dynamic. You know, they had the whole, you know, buddy cop. They end up being double punishers, sent to, you know, take the ghosts and put them back into hell, but cultivation. So I'm excited for that one. I have a story that I call is like Warframes Fight SCPs, is the working concept logline of it, of like these like cool mechs end up fighting all these different monsters, and the HUD gives you all the lit RPG elements. That one I'm really excited for. And the other one is I was going to write in. I pretty much went to Jez. I'm like, hi, I have fan fiction for Underverse. And he's like, yes, love it. So I'm looking forward to doing that one too, and focusing on like the Valkyrie story and all these like, troop of badass women. So if anyone's looking forward to those, I mean, I have my Patreon, my Facebook, where if you want to see more kitty cats, I post kitty cat photos on the Facebook, on the Patreon. You just look for anything like /Godhand author. Probably going to be me, especially if you see, cats and my little sigil. So keep an eye out for those.
Amazing. So I guess if we want to end this with a perfect record, there is one question that is outstanding. So from Franny Cardone Bickmore, just joining, is there an exercise you do to keep you busy and always writing to keep you from getting discouraged? And I think I'd probably put the caveat of my own interpretation on this, in that rather than it being a physical exercise, I imagine this to be a mental exercise as it addresses being discouraged. So is there, in terms of your own resilience, is there something that you do mentally that prepares you for this? And I don't know if Emily is thinking or she has the answer.
I know for me, like I'm a perfectionist, detailed oriented, like ICU, like anal retentive, and so I end up having to tell myself, put it down. It's good enough. It's fine. You don't have to keep fixing it. Put it down. It's good enough. It's fine. You're not going to make it. You can make it 1% better. It was already fine. So put it down and go take a walk. And then if I think of anything else to fix it and process it on the walk, then you can come back. But like, don't sit there and keep like trying to restart the first chapter 10 times over, or start in the middle, or, play around with it. It'll be fine. It'll be good enough. You don't have to overthink it too much. So that's like my mental exercise I do. And the physical exercise is where I'm just going to go take a walk and figure out. And by the time I come back, all the blood's gone back to my, head, and had all that, extra processing and the endorphins, and it just helps a lot.
Fantastic. Aileron, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. I feel like a theme of what everyone has said today is sort of talking about how addressing larger issues is not like a one and done type of thing. It's a series of small moves and small decisions that add up to something amazing, just like writing a book. I think give yourself grace that, if you're feeling it, keep writing. Even if you have a movie, like skip the movie. And if you're not feeling it, go see a movie, go relax, do something like that. Like, it is a longer term kind of thing. And once it's created, it'll be there in perpetuity. So it's okay. Like, you can cut yourself some slack. And I think letting go of that stress that you're putting on yourself might just let the juices flow. So I hope that helps.
Amazing. CJ, because you shifted the order of things. Like,
yes.
Routine. James talked about Atomic Habits. That is a brilliant read. But if you have a routine and you just chip away, like you just chip away every day, that's all the advice I could give. You want a way for your writing to be boring and routine rather than exciting, because it means you just do it every day. It's like putting on your shoes or going for a walk. So once you have a routine, it does help.
Fantastic. Angel, what about you?
Yeah, I actually got a pretty weird one. Before I get to writing or doing anything writing related, I like to play a few games of Solitaire. I got Microsoft Solitaire. I noted up, play a few games of Freecell, Klondike. I play every single game in these 2 games, and that gets my mental juices going. It's my critical thinking. It's my critical thinking.
There's another F-35.
Yeah. So basically, it levels up my wisdom. You can say levels it up by 10 or whatever. But it helps me, and then I do some jumping jacks and push-ups. Gets my blood flowing after I get that little bit of Solitaire. I mean, I'm not playing Solitaire, as weird as that might be. But
fantastic.
Yeah, it gets me going.
I suppose before our listeners think that I'm a savant, TJ actually told us in the comments that it's F-35s flying overhead. It's not like, what is that? Yeah, that's an F-35, not an F-11. That sounds different. So, sure. TJ, over to you.
Well, I think I've really covered it for is like a physical exercises, the running, the walking, things like that. But as far as writing, I think we've all been there where you get to that point and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to write about this. This is boring, but I have to, because without this part isn't going to make sense. So I got to get through it. Mm-hmm. One of the things I found was if I can change the point of view, or if I can refocus it, can I change the scene? Can I change something? So in book 2, there's a scene where the main character is going through and he does something. And it's super boring to a certain point, but I then switched the point of view to another character, and it was how they interpreted the scene, what they thought of. And so it really played this nice dynamic back and forth. So can you change a point of view? Can you find a way to describe clothing or the scene or something else that really gets you re-excited and re-engaged and get your momentum back in the process? So that's what I would recommend. That's definitely helped for me.
Fantastic. Back to Emily.
I was going to add in regards to, like, we use the terms like running, walking, physical activity, and I want to acknowledge, like, if you guys have seen me at some of the conventions, I actually use a cane sometimes. Nursing absolutely screwed my nervous system. I have several medical conditions that make it kind of difficult to keep up with that physical lifestyle, because if I stand up, my heart rate doubles and I'll pass out. So I wanted to acknowledge that we do use these terms because they are common, but if you are not physically capable, either due to a limitation or a difficulty to overcome without adaptive devices of doing these sort of things, then the general idea would be to do what you can. And doing what you can, to the best of your ability without hurting yourself will absolutely be enough. So when I used to do like exercises with seniors who would, have their wheelchairs, we would, how much can you move your arms? How much can you dance in your chair? Can you, go out and use adaptive devices? Are those something that could help you be able to, pursue the mobility that you would like? So I just want to acknowledge, like, yes, we, do use these terms, but with the caveat of to whatever the best of your degree and ability is, and don't feel afraid to seek help from medical professionals or physical therapist or your doctor in pursuing anything that might be able to help you live the life that you'd like.
Amazing. So
I want to add one more thing. I was actually inspired by something TJ said when he was talking about the relationship you have with it. I think that relationship is a really great term to have with your writing. Like it's an actual, like it gets a life of its own. It's almost like a real person. For me, it's true love. So it's like sometimes I literally want to light it on fire. Sometimes I can't get away from it. Other times I look like a damn crackhead because, like James, I've been up for like 3 days in a row, and you just keep going, and you're just like, and like people are taking pictures of you, and you're like, you don't get it. Like it's weird. It's weird. You're creating. So like whatever kind of weirdness you got going on, like just honor that flow. Do you? I guess, and it's okay whatever it looks like.
Yeah, I'm not a medical professional, but everyone should drink water because you're all fucking dehydrated.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
These ones know what they're doing. Okay. Yeah. Be more like them. So thank you all so much for joining us. I think we can probably wrap it up there. Oh no, 15 minutes left of my takeover. Oh well. So, but, oh no, this was my plan all along. So, have a great evening. Thank you so much. There's Discord later on. There's Discord after party where some people will be answering questions. There will be takeovers throughout the day as well as future panels that we hope you'll join. And you can go to litcon.net to buy anything in the shop, and all proceeds go to charity or something. I don't remember the actual details. Hope you all had a great time.
Yes, I did.
It was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Amazing. Bye bye.
See you guys.